We are live. What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here, reporting for Status Coup. It is Thursday, October 26th, in this year of 2023. It's already October. Do you have some exciting Halloween plans? It's coming up. It's basically this weekend. We got a very exciting show for you today. First of all, smash the like button. Smash it. Don't just push it. Smash it. Tell your friends, share the stream, smash the like button. That gets us out. That spreads the algorithm. We have a lot of breaking news today. We're going to start with the UAW strike. You probably saw the video we dropped late last night about a tentative agreement has been reached between the UAW and Ford. We're going to talk more in depthly about that. I will announce right now, cast your vote in the poll. You don't have to vote like right now. You can wait until we dive into this a little more. But our poll of the day, of course, is are you in favor of, do you think the deal is a good deal? Would you vote in favor of the deal? And of course, your choices are yes, no, or you need to see the whole thing first. I'm pretty sure those are our three choices. So don't forget to cast your vote. And to help you get ready to do that, we have the president of the local 551 UAW in Chicago. Please welcome back to the show, because I interviewed him in Chicago, Mr. Chris Penna. Chris, good to see you again.
Hey, Ron, good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Of course. That was, I got to say off the bat, that was a fun time in Chicago, wasn't it? That was a bunch of my college buddies were a little jealous. I got to see the guy from Rise Against play a couple tunes.
It was an amazing experience. High energy, and a lot of friends of labor came together, and I'm just glad you guys were there to witness it.
It was an honor to be part of it and an honor to cover it. So let's dive into this tentative deal. So let's start broad and then we'll get a little more specific. So to start out, just kind of give me your overall assessment. How are you feeling? Do you think it's a good deal? What are some kind of thoughts you have that you want to know more on? Give me kind of your overall assessment here to begin.
So last night, we got the news from Shawn Fain. We were on the picket lines, and all of a sudden I get a call from Detroit saying, tell everyone they got about an hour to get off the picket line. And it was very vague, but it was basically stay tuned for Shawn Fain's message. So no one left the picket lines. We had like a watch party, and everything he was saying, him and Chuck Browning both, I mean, came up with some really exciting news, and that was really great wage increases. Was right off the top of my head. I mean, that's unbelievable. The gains that we've seen on the wage increase, we haven't seen that since the recession era, and maybe even before that. So the crowd on the picket lines were just elated. We heard again that the cost of living allowance is actually secured, which is huge. Another huge win on our wage increase. And then they talked about pensions. I have a lot more questions about what's actually in the pensions, or is there going to be additional money put into them? Or I have a lot of questions, but I think a lot of those will be addressed at the Ford Council meeting in Detroit this Sunday. And that's where we'll get the details, and we'll be able to, all the labor leaders, the chairman and the presidents of each local in the Ford system will be at this Ford Council meeting. And that's where we'll be able to actually ask questions, look at the details of the contract, and then put it before the council vote to see if we're going to put the contract to be voted on before the membership.
Mm-hmm. So you brought up the pension, which was on my list of just things that, I think people are kind of looking for more information on.
Yes.
What do we know so far in regards to pensions? And basically, do we have confirmation that this deal will mean that everyone gets a pension, or are those still details that everyone's waiting on?
I think those are details everyone's still waiting on, because I didn't hear the key phrase, which is pensions for all. I didn't hear that, and I haven't really seen that in writing also. There's talk of pensions, and that's always good, but I really need to see the details to, have an informed decision on how does this benefit us, and was this a gain?
So what do we know about pensions so far? I mean, they mentioned some numbers, some increases. I think there was some increases for retired workers. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, the only thing I've seen for retired workers is like a $250 amount, and I don't know if that'll be in a lump sum or put into the pension. Of course, we don't want a lump sum. We would like that 250 put into the pensions, but again, I don't have the details on specifics. I just know that it was about 8 to 10 years ago when they took away the retirees. They called it a Christmas bonus, which was around $250. And like I said, lump sums are not very entertaining. They don't do much. The retirees know that too. They would like to see something invested into their pension.
Mhm.
And then we still have, 401ks, but I really don't see pensions for all.
Mhm.
Our members all have 401ks, and they're matched to a point. For our newer members, our legacy employees, such as myself, have a 401k, and it's not matched. It's just what you put into it.
Mhm.
So I'll also have a pension as a legacy employee, but then the entry level employees, the second tier people, do not have pensions at all. So on Sunday, I'm looking forward to having that discussion with the national negotiators and with Chuck Browning, and getting more info on that, because that's that's a pretty
That's a
serious
big
topic.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge.
So Sunday, in a best case scenario, on Sunday, you guys would meet on that issue, and the clarification would be, yes, we have one pensions for all. That's the hope.
That's the hope.
Okay. So let's get to another thing that a lot of folks have been asking for kind of just more information on is the situation with tiered workers. I believe in the statement that was released, there are several plants that are getting rid of the tier system. Is that going to be eliminated across the board, though, or will it still exist in some plants? Have those details been worked out yet?
I haven't seen those details worked out either. I did see that some part suppliers, like I think
Hmm.
Rawsonville was mentioned, Mopar, will get full wages
Hmm.
like they do in assembly plants. That's a great win for part suppliers. That's huge.
Hmm.
Um, but again, there's details on pensions for all, and there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot more that we need to discuss before we vote to put it before the membership.
Sure. Yeah. No. Certainly. So let's get to the wage itself. I mean, I know I've seen two different responses, and I kind of I kind of see the perspective from both sides. I mean, on one hand, it's like the company wanted to give 10%, which is basically not even a cost of living increase. That's basically a slap in the face. You guys know this. You got it up to, you guys were saying 40, and now right now it looks like it's landing in the 30 range when you factor in the immediate 11%, then the 25% plus cost of living. It's going to be in the 30-ish range, 30 to 33% range, which from a negotiation standpoint, that's pretty good. Like 40 was the ask, 10 was what they were offering. You got it in the 30s. Well, that's pretty good, I'd say. Um, However, the other side to that I've heard from some folks is that because things had been stagnant for so long, that kind of just gets you back to where you were in 2007. So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I kind of see that point of view too. I think it's a tough. Where do you land on that?
Well, you're not always going to get everything you ask for. I mean,
Sure.
it's a negotiation for a reason. You're going to try and meet somewhere in the middle, and I think we've met more than in the middle in these
Mhm.
negotiations. It's an historic game because we've been losing for so long. So many contracts have just been so mediocre, and we've actually gone backwards in wages because of the inflation that's out of control right now. To those that say that we're just breaking even right now, I don't see it yet. I mean, but that's yet to be determined. It looks like that, the 3-year wage progression to full pay is huge for our newer people. And then for legacy to actually get an increase on their wages is something we haven't seen in 8 to 10 years. We've been so concerned with bringing the second tier up to our wages. They've seen the increases. We've seen legacy employees have seen lump sum bonuses, which we all know it's just not good for anyone. We want that money tied to our hourly rate, which is where the cost of living allowance comes back. That's huge. And then for a 25% increase on top of that is a gain. And I just think that it's a huge win. It really is. Since the recession, we've been, we haven't really, I can't even say we've been fighting for COLA since the recession until now. I mean, all of us wanted it, but no one was willing to do anything about it at the top administration level. And it took Sean Fain to ask us to go on strike. And we've seen a lot of movement. When Ford was like, this is all we have. In the very beginning, they were like, this is all you're getting, basically. And then one plant went down and another plant went down and another plant went down. And all of a sudden there's all this kind of movement, that Ford said was impossible. Well, it's not impossible. Look at us now. I mean, from what I see is a fair agreement right now. And that's the best we can ask for right now. I mean, in 4.5 years, we'll deal with, whatever comes our way then. But a lot of people are going to be happy in 3 years when they come in that door and they're at full wages. I see that as a huge, huge win. It's a game changer, actually, because, people are going to be able to support their families and actually buy the vehicles that we build again. We've turned a part-time job back to a career, which we haven't seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm. So going on that, I mean, I think it's safe to say that the strategic striking has been very effective. Kind of almost like, just playing a card game and you have a couple aces up your sleeve and you're sort of having your poker face on. It seems to have been effective. So in the scenario where you have to go back to it, and again, I mean, there's still a lot of unknowns here. There's still the meeting on Sunday. So this is all still like, speculation. But if you were to go back to it, are there still some ace cards in the hole?
Oh, there's definitely ace cards in the hole. I mean, Kansas City would be one of them. That plant is huge. They're doing the transits down there. They're doing the escapes. That would be just one of them. I don't want to really give up too many other.
Oh, no. Don't give out the playbook. But
yeah, but I would say,
anybody can watch this online, Chris.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, Kansas City's known, to be a great moneymaker, one of the top moneymakers, and one of the biggest plants also, besides KTP. So yeah, I would say that would be an ace. But they also announced that this contract would be 4.5 years, and they did that for a reason. We've always been on 4-year contracts, but strategically, that'll put us in 4.5 years into the springtime. It's a lot easier to go on strike if needed in the springtime than dealing with what we're dealing with here in Chicago, which is fall weather, where one day it's raining, one day it's 90 degrees, and the next day it's snowing. I mean, that's how fast our weather changes daily in the fall. And, winter just kind of hits us. We don't get much of a fall. It just kind of a blast off Lake Michigan comes, and you don't know what you're getting: rain, sleet, snow, anything. So, luckily our weather was pretty cooperative for the most part. Yeah, we dealt with some rain, but that's nothing. But I like the 4.5-year contract because strategically, if the time comes to strike again, we're doing it in a lot better weather.
Yeah. That's I that never even would have crossed my mind, but that's an excellent point. So another thing I wanted to get just a little clarification on that I was a little unclear on, based on what we know so far, the situation with temp workers. How is that going to be changing? I know they're going to get better wages pretty much immediately. Could you expand on what we know so far in that realm?
Yeah, again, I don't have like many of the details, but they're trying to. It looks like by the talk, it sounded like they were ending tiers, and 90 days they would be full time. Now that's hasn't happened since I came in the 90s. 90 days, and you were considered full time, and then your pay progresses from there, your benefits, all that, because you're full time in 90 days, and that's kind of the general gist of what I got. But again, I don't have the exact details for
Mhm.
temporary. But it does look like they are eliminating the tiers altogether, and that's one way
Oh,
to
okay.
do it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That I mean, that's huge. I mean, yeah,
it
I mean,
is.
I know a lot of people were really calling for that. I mean, people that I spoke to were really calling
and
for that.
and that's what I mean by turning Ford back to a career instead of a part-time
Mhm.
job, because we've had so many temporary part-time people that, I mean, they're going on 8 years and they're still calling them temporary part-time, and it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
and they weren't progressing. But there was some movement because a certain percentage across the U.S. were being turned over from temporary part-time once there were so many TPTs, we call them. Once there
Mhm.
was so many in the Ford system, once they'd reached, there was a calculation, they would reach a certain percentage, and then they would start turning them over. But
Mhm.
like I said, I mean, that could be 6 years into your lifespan already at Ford, or 8 years. So that's really good movement that they're speeding up the process of becoming full time. That's, like I said, I haven't seen that since the 90s.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like so far, based on what we know so far, there are some very tangible wins that are definitely like, oh yeah. Um, well, simultaneously, still some details that really need to come to the surface. And
Definitely.
hopefully we get some good news. So I guess just sort of asking you to kind of estimate a little bit here. How optimistic are you about Sunday?
I'm very optimistic. When I get the gauge of the room once I'm there, I mean, you're going to have all the leaders from the U.S., presidents and chairs from every local that's in the Ford system. And, I just, by gauging our own membership on the picket line when the news was announced, I mean, it was a victory,
Mhm.
and overall, generally, it was a huge victory. And I think Sunday will solidify that when the Ford Council meets and determines whether this is worth putting before the membership for a vote.
Mhm.
And, that time is right around the corner.
Yeah.
We're just, you're going to have a lot of naysayers, and especially when there's gaps in the information that we don't have all the answers yet. We still don't have answers of when our people are returning to work, which could be any day now. We don't know. We do know our janitorial services are coming back to the plant tomorrow, and that's a start. For the assembly side, all our assembly workers, it's to be determined. That there's been two robocalls out already from Ford, and they're very vague, and they're kind of just saying stay tuned for the next robocall. So
Mm.
could be any day, but it's hard to say if they would bring people back on a weekend when the beginning of the week for C Crew is a Friday. That's the start of their actual work week. So to bring people in on a weekend, kind of tough, because that's the middle of it'd be a short pay period.
Right.
So, but anything can happen. I mean, we could be going back at any day. The good thing is we're going back, and we have a TA, and the whole premise of going back to work is to actually put pressure on GM and Stellantis
Uh-oh.
table quicker, and start making some movement on getting a tentative agreement for GM and Stellantis also.
Yeah, you just froze for 1 second there. But I actually did want to ask you about that next. So how will this put the pressure on GM and Stellantis? Because I mean, basically, they're still going to be losing money. Oh, did we lose Chris? We might have lost Chris. Oh, we lost Chris.
Hey,
All right,
Chris, just
hit
try hitting the refresh button. See if that fixes it.
He had started talking about the the GM and Stellantis thing, which was what I wanted to ask him next. I wanted to ask him, just kind of the ground game there on how this will put the pressure on GM and Stellantis. Hopefully we can get him back here, and close out the interview here. But in the meantime, smash the like button, smash the like button. And, if you want to support what we're doing here, you can do so over at statuscoup.com/join. Keep in mind, when you support what we're doing here at Status Coup, you're supporting on-the-ground journalism. We just had a breaking story because, Chris, you're back.
Hey, Ron.
Hey. Sorry. No. Thanks for hopping back in. No, I was just, you brought it up naturally, but it was where I wanted to go next. So explain to me sort of the anatomy here, like how will this now put the pressure on GM and Stellantis to, is it Stellantis or Stellantis? I've heard both.
I say Stellantis. It's like
you
tomato,
do?
Tomato,
All right. Okay. All right. So I saw someone the other day said the T, and I'm like, I've always just been Stellantis. I've never said Stellantis, but well, either way, how do we put the pressure on GM and Stellantis to settle? Because I mean, basically, they're still losing money. So what's kind of the strategy there on getting them to offer a deal just as good?
Yeah, the stand-up strike is, it's been pretty aggressive, and it's still continuing for Ford because we're going to stand up in the plants in solidarity with the GM and Stellantis workers that are on strike still. So the movement is to start making cars for Ford, and that puts pressure on GM and Stellantis to see that, we're making profits and they're not. So they need to make some headway and get closer to a TA for GM and Stellantis, because we're already going to be making profits, and hopefully this TA gets ratified. That's to be determined, but it's going to happen in a quick process, and in a week or two, the whole membership will be able to vote on whether they accept this contract. Mm-hmm. And right now, as it stands, it looks like a good, fair contract to me. But like I said, we'll get more details on Sunday at the Ford Council meeting.
Mm-hmm. So in a scenario like just a hypothetical where, let's say, like, Ford gets a really good contract through, everybody's for it, they vote on it, it's a positive vote, Ford's back to work. If GM and Stellantis were still dragging their feet and still didn't offer a decent contract, or they offered a not great contract, how would the UAW respond to that? What would kind of be the plan of action there?
I would think you would see the guerrilla warfare tactics that Shawn Fain has been continuing to use, and you would see more plants on the GM side and the Stellantis side go down. Uh-huh. And that would show that profits are going to be lost on those sides, as Ford is going to be regaining profits, mm-hmm. because we'll be working. So
really, it's not in the big three's interest to not offer just as powerful as a contract, because the UAW, I mean, the strike fund is all basically in unison.
Exactly. There's been a big hit to the strike fund too. The big sure. Three know it. We know it. So you want to play your cards sparingly, because there's only so many dollars we have in the strike fund. But where this ends, nobody knows. I mean, we're all in. Sure. And with Ford, I'd love to see a TA ratified shortly, and our people back to work making profits and attracting non-union shops that want to be part of the UAW because of this historic offer. Yeah. And Toyota, Tesla, we want to organize all of them. Like Shawn Fain said, they're not the enemy; they're future UAW.
I mean, hey, I think that, even if we're not quite at the finish line yet, that there's still some details, but, regardless, there's still a ton of progress that has been made and a ton of wins that the companies told you that weren't possible that are now guaranteed. And so I think you guys have definitely shown, a new generation of people what unions are capable of and why they're important. And, we're living in a country with about 7% union membership. I don't think it's because people don't want unions. I think it's because, there's been there's been a 60-year effort to completely obliterate them, as I'm sure you're well aware. And now, you're kind of showing by example, this is why this matters. This is why your union matters. And this is why when you walk into a company and they show you some anti-union propaganda, walk out of there or ignore it and unionize anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Media coverage has been key. Our, shows like yours really puts a spotlight on unions. Sean Fain using social media and Facebook Live. None of our union presidents have ever used that on the national scale like they have until now. And I think that's a big tool that helps shed more light on the unions and what we're about. I think before we were left in the dark because it was up to us locally if we had any media coverage and we had to tell our story. And, we're auto workers. We're not tech savvy. We're not, it's hard enough doing a Zoom meeting for a lot of our people. But, we're progressing.
Well, you're doing a great job here.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
You're doing great.
We lost signal for a bit, but hey, we're back.
That happens.
That's what we do. We adapt and we overcome and, we all stick together. And that message has been, I say highlighted throughout the U.S., but the world also. I mean, we had labor leaders from Brazil come that represent GM, the auto workers in GM in Brazil, and the aerospace workers. The labor leaders we had come visit us on our picket lines represent 30,000 auto workers / metal workers. And they just went back to their company and now they're on strike. So the patterns that we do as a union here affects the markets globally because the our GM union brothers and sisters are going through the same things and the same pattern we are. I mean, when we went through the recession and they enacted tiers, it was only shortly a couple years after that GM brought tiers into their system and down in Brazil. So, the world is watching us closely, and we hope, future generations in schools start to learn more about these historic efforts that we've gone through. There's a lot of labor history that is, built up and led up to these moments. People fought and died for our 8-hour days, our 40-hour work weeks, our benefits that we have. None of this came easy. We were lucky enough to just have a strike that only lasted 27 days in Chicago, 40 days overall. And so far, no fatalities. We've had, very little incidents on the picket line. And as far as I know, everyone's going back to work that, in the same way they left work. I mean, they're going back whole again and in one piece. And, that's a win for me because I can't sleep at night knowing that I have people in harm's way on the corners of picket lines and busy streets in Chicago, and they could potentially get hurt or killed. Well, I mean, that's a big sigh of relief that we're actually going back to work and there has been no fatalities or major incidences.
Absolutely. So in closing, is there anything else you just want to say in closing that people should know about this deal or any messages you want to leave our audience with?
Well, we had a visitor cross our picket line. Jim Farley came to the Chicago Assembly the other day, and we had our motorcycle committee ride up and slow him down a bit so he could see all the picketers and look him in the eye before he went into the plant to address the management. And, we had drones up in the sky and, we had some good footage. He was in one of our vehicles, a Lincoln Aviator. And, we just wanted to show our presence in a strong manner. We did that. We mobilized, we organized, and right outside the window where he was meeting at the training center at our Chicago assembly plant, he could look out the window and see all the people we had. And it was just, we had a DJ out there. We were blaring music. Everyone was in good spirits on both sides of the street. People are honking. The public support was there. So you couldn't ask for a better picture than that. Right outside an important management meeting where they're, trying to see what the inventory looks like at Chicago Assembly, which is, there's not much. There's a couple cars sitting around, but we're not making anything. So that visual there, it was pretty epic, and it was, towards the end of our strike, and I hope that had some kind of impact at the bargaining table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hope that just on a human level, he would just be like, these are the people that make it happen, Although I gotta say, not trying to be not trying to be a divider here, but I hope you didn't offer him any pizza. He could buy his own. No judgment if you did, but
there might have been some one finger salutes going on, but that's about it.
I didn't ask about that, but well, Chris, thank you so much for doing this.
The working relationship with the company. They're not the enemy. We got to make profits.
Understand. Well, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you again for everything you do. And congratulations on the progress that's been made so far. And here's hoping that come Sunday, the good news continues.
Definitely. Thanks, Ron. These are exciting times. We're glad you guys are a part of it, and to witness it and to cover it. It's huge. It really is. You guys are our labor allies, and it doesn't go unnoticed. We really appreciate it. And thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you. Solidarity. Be well. Safe travels. All right. So there you have it. That was Chris Penna. Fun interview. I had a fun time talking to him in Chicago. Had a fun time talking to him again today. Sorry about the I think we had a little bit of a crosstalk there, a little bit at the end, not crosstalk, but you know what I mean? Like there was a bit of a lag between him and I. So he was talking and I couldn't hear it because there was a bit of a lag there. So sorry about that at the end. But yeah, cast your vote. What are your thoughts on what we know about the contract so far? I said this last night. I still feel the same way. I think there's definitely some very tangible wins. However, some questions that definitely still need answered. I think my personal vote on the poll, and Colin, show the Facebook. This is not an official poll by any means, but this was something done on Facebook amidst the workers. So those are the yes votes. Those are the no votes. For 1 month, and that's it. Another no, but exclamation point. Need to see the agreement first. Now, I got to be honest. That's how I would vote. I would need to see the agreement first, because I think there is some good news so far, but I would want to see the rest of it before I would decide that yes, I want to cast a vote in favor, or no, I do not want to cast a vote in favor. But that's just me. At the end of the day, the workers are going to decide this, and I hope if there's any workers watching today, feel free to drop us a line here. Let us know your thoughts. Give us your take on it. Are you yes? Are you no? What are your thoughts? My personal take is I'd be curious. I want to hear the rest of the details first. I think that's the way to be. But yeah. Interesting stuff nonetheless. So let's move on to another topic today. This is pretty terrible. I mean, it's so hard to talk about stories like this because they're all the frickin' time. And I mean, there was a mass shooting in Maine. You probably heard about it already, but a guy shot up a bar. And I think he shot up two here. Let's go to the article. He shot up a bar and then somewhere else. So at least 18 killed in shootings in Lewiston, Maine. Manhunt is underway for the suspect. This is the live update ticker from NBC News. Oh, bowling alley was the other one. Yeah, it was a bar and a bowling alley in Lewiston, Maine, which I believe is like an hour outside of Portland. At least 18 people are dead and another 13 are injured after shootings at a bar and a bowling alley in Lewiston, Maine. Police named Robert Card, who is 40 years old, as a suspect in the shootings, and an arrest warrant on murder charges has been issued. He remains at large. This is a total side note, not related to the story, but why do they always mention people's age in stories? They should just, like, why do they do? I don't know. I've never quite understood that. Anyway, 7 people were found dead at the Just in Time Recreation Bowling Alley. 8 were found dead at Schmenji's Bar. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but Schmenji's Bar and Grill. And 3 were pronounced dead at area hospitals. Officials have urged residents of Lewiston, Maine, which is about 30 miles north of Portland, to shelter in place. Wow. And this guy's still at large. Now, this guy apparently has a heck of a history. Like, this guy apparently has, he's a big gun nut. He's really into a bunch of right-wing militias. He apparently was at a facility before where he said he was going to kill everybody, and they just discharged him. And he was the kind of, I saw another thing. He was the guy in town that everyone avoided. He was like the big, just kind of angry guy in town that you never knew when he was going to maybe fly off the handle. Steve makes a good point. They probably mention his age because he's at large. Yes, that is a valid point. I guess what I meant is that they do it all the time, though. They don't just do it in like a suspect thing. They just do it randomly in any news stories. Like, they'll say a person's name and then they'll say the age. But yeah, in this case, obviously that makes sense. This guy is at large, which is pretty frightening. I texted with some of my friends who live in Portland, Maine. Pretty scary stuff. And you just think of that Onion headline. Not that this is a laughing matter, it isn't, but you think of that Onion headline where it just says, "We can't possibly do anything to stop this," says country where it's the only country where this goes on. I know I butchered the actual verbiage of the title, but it's like, yeah, we can't do anything to stop these mass shootings, says only country where these mass shootings happen at this level. This guy was just a known, violent person, was just a known, made shooting threats before, and of course could just get his hands on any gun he wants. And you guys have probably heard me talk on this issue before. I have no confidence we will ever see any type of common sense weapons policy in the United States. I have not in my lifetime. I have no confidence at all. And there's so many things we could do. So many things we could do. A voluntary buyback, classes, reference letters, better background checks, a federal policy so it's across the board. There's some states in this country where there is a reasonable background check if you want to get a firearm. There's other states where if you have a frickin' pulse, they'll give you a gun. And then all these loopholes, magazines, stuff like that, the types of weapons we make available that, there's that legendary moment in Bowling for Columbine where the one parent of one of the kids who was shot in Columbine, he just said, the weapon that was used to shoot my kid is not used to hunt deer. It's used to kill other human beings, and that is it. This is not a hunting. This isn't hunting equipment. And by the way, other places in the world have guns. That's another popular misconception in the United States. We think we're the only country with guns. We're not. Other countries have guns. They don't have the issues we do. At the very least, nowhere near the scale. Nowhere close. And it's because they have common sense laws around firearms. You can't just have a pulse and then walk out the door with a gun. You can't do that. There's also some protections as far as how much ammo you can get. In certain countries, you have to go to a certain place to get ammo. And there's training and there's ranges, like shooting ranges. We have those here, but there's just so voluntary buyback in Australia. We could do something like that here. We never have any constructive conversations around what could be done. You never hear any. The closest thing you ever hear to policy proposals around firearms in the United States is when Beto O'Rourke or someone like that just proposes this completely unrealistic situation that will never be passed into law. Like, oh, we're just going to ban all the guns. Yeah, that's not going to pass. All right, let's live in reality for a second. And that doesn't have to be the only solution. You don't only have two choices. You don't just have, well, we can either do nothing at all or nobody can have a firearm. Those aren't your only two choices. The United States propaganda machine wants you to believe those are the only two choices. That's absolutely freaking absurd. And tons of other countries around the world prove that. So either see some grandstanding thoughts and prayers BS from Republicans, or they're like, well, clearly it's just mental health. It can't possibly be that anyone can get a gun. Or you have these ridiculous proposals from people like Beto O'Rourke. And guess what? Guess what? You know why that happens? It's because Beto O'Rourke hired some boring focus group that said, hey, Beto, you know what would be really neat and edgy? If you were a Texan who's really outspoken against guns. That would be, and wear some denim while you're at it. That's a good hook, line, and sinker, says the marketing degree. That's all that is. That's not a real proposal. And that's what we're limited to here in the United States. And they really want you to believe we either do nothing at all or we have like some ridiculous policy proposal that will never come to fruition. So it's just a freaking shame. And in the meantime, school shootings are going to continue. Mass shootings are going to continue. And it's just heartbreaking. I have a new niece. I became an uncle a couple months ago. And she's awesome, by the way. But, I mean, I think about it like, gee, I really... I don't want her to have to experience her first shooter drill. I don't want to have to worry about that, or for her to worry about that as she grows up. But that's the world we're living in, and that's the world that we've been living in. And for me personally, after Sandy Hook was when I just kind of reached the level of acceptance where I just said, we'll never see any changes in this area because they're gunning down our children and we are doing nothing. And if they come after the children and nobody does anything, that's pretty rough. That's pretty dire. And not a day goes by where I don't hope I'm wrong. I sincerely hope I'm wrong. I do hope I see common sense gun legislation in my lifetime in this country. But I would not put a bet on it. And it's a shame. It's a shame. I mean, if I'm being totally honest with you, I hope my niece doesn't grow up in the United States. I hope that somehow she gets to grow up somewhere else. I've talked to my sister about it. I've tried to talk her into it. I don't have kids. If I did, I would not still be living in the United States. I'd be gone. My wife and I are undecided on children, but the one thing we were decided on, if we ever do decide to have children, they will not be raised here. They will not grow up in the United States. We will have to move somewhere else. And it breaks my heart that I feel that way about the only country I've ever called home. But it's the reality of the world we're living in. All right, let's go to this lunatic. All right, that was getting a little too, yeah. By the way, smash the like button, leave a super chat. I want to chat with you. Vote in the poll. Before we go on to the next story, Colin, how's the poll looking? What's the poll looking like?
Currently we have 226 votes.
Nice.
That say 31% say yes, 22% say no, and 46% say wait to see more details.
So I'm in the 40. I'm in the majority here. I'm in the 46%. What about you? What's your vote?
Mine is same. Wait to see more details.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like you gotta, I mean, yeah, because there's still some very valid questions. All right. Well, don't forget to cast your vote. All right. So there's a new Speaker of the House, and he's absolutely batshit crazy. So let's go to Mike Johnson. Speaking of some of the reasons why we'll never see some common sense policy is because people like this guy get elected. So let's go to the the piece on Mike Johnson, just the one declaring him Speaker of the House. Then we'll go to the Rolling Stone piece. So Representative Mike Johnson voted new House Speaker. Mike Johnson secured the Speaker's gavel without losing any GOP votes Wednesday after weeks of party infighting left the House in chaos. The Louisiana lawmaker has been a vocal supporter of former President Donald Trump and was a key congressional figure in the failed efforts to overturn the 2020 election. He's the Speaker now. So 220 votes for Johnson, 209 votes for Democrat Hakeem Jeffries. Unanimous GOP support behind Johnson. Okay, and then one Republican, Derek Van Orden, which sounds like a name for a freaking comic book villain. Derek Van Orden, I'll get you, Spider-Man. Anyway, they were absent from the vote. So let's learn more about this guy, this new Speaker of the House, who's just what a doozy. Let's go to the Air It in the Morning tweet first, then we'll go to the Rolling Stone piece on who this guy is. Then we're going to close out with Cornel West. All right, so Mike Johnson was elected Speaker of the U.S. House. He authored a national Don't Say Gay bill, but it's much worse. It would ban any exposure to transgenderism to those under 10 years old, which means it could ban transgender teachers, therapy, and more. Wow. So that's what this guy's on. And we know the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, when you really read the details of that bill, which we did over here at Status Coup, that bill is not about parental input. That bill is about making it next to impossible for transgender youth to get any resources whatsoever. Because really, it's a bill about trying to eliminate transgender people out of existence. That's what its goal is. That's what Ron DeSantis is trying to do. Why? Because he's a fascist. All right. So let's go to the Rolling Stone piece about this guy. Mike Johnson blamed shootings on teaching evolution and abortion. He blamed it on that. Man, the brain rot on that guy. Newly elected House Speaker Mike Johnson is a hardcore Christian nationalist who has a history of spouting extreme right-wing views, including on mass shootings. The Louisiana Republicans' record on guns has come under scrutiny in the wake of the shooter killing at least 18 people in Maine. And in addition to opposing gun control legislation, the man who is now second in line for the presidency has blamed mass shootings on both teaching evolution and abortion. During a 2016 sermon at the Christian Center in Shreveport, Louisiana, Johnson said that a series of cultural shifts in the United States, led by elites and academics in the 1930s, erased the influence of Christian thinking and creationism from society. Guess what? Let me just cast this aside real quick. It's not science, okay? So nobody is imposing on your desire to believe what you want to believe. If you want to believe in creationism, that's fine. That's your choice. That's your faith. That's your business. But it is exactly that, your belief. It does not belong in a scientific classroom. It doesn't belong there because science is based on evidence and exploration and testing hypotheses and trial and error. That's what science is. Religion is by definition a pseudoscience, meaning it cannot be proven or disproven. It's just kind of this thing that relies on faith, and you either have it or you don't. You cannot debate a science and a pseudoscience. It is impossible. And all it leads to is some entertaining television, but nothing else. So no, nobody's eliminating your creationism. It's just not science. It is not science. And it does not belong in a classroom in a secular institution. If you want to go to a private school that has religion class or whatever else, that's fine. And in that religion class, you can talk about creationism till you're blue in the face. Knock yourself out. And if parents want to pay to send their kids there, well, that's their choice. But all right. So anyway, getting off of that aside, let's go back to this piece about this guy's genius. People say, so here's his quote here. People say, how can a young person go into their schoolhouse and open fire on their classmates? Because we've taught a couple generations of Americans that there's no right or wrong, that it's about survival of the fittest, and that you evolve from the primordial slime. Why is that life of any sacred value? Because there's nobody sacred to whom it's owed. None of this should surprise us. Boy, is that some pretzel logic. Wow. That was some, I mean, honestly, that mental gymnastics qualifies for the 2028 Olympics. Holy cow. Well, it's because you teach kids science and evolution. That's why there's school shootings. That's remarkable. Because they don't value life. Wow. That's remarkable logic. Or lack thereof. So that's the new Speaker of the House. So now you see why we have the types of policies we have in this country that are absolutely freaking ridiculous, because we are a theocratic fascist regime. I mean, that's what's going on here. There is no separation of church and state in the United States. It does not exist. Religious dogma is imposed into our laws all of the time. They use it to justify war. They use it to justify war all the time. They use it to impose social norms. It's, and, you kind of thought we were getting away from this stuff in 2004. Nope, it's still there. Because there's still people like Mike Johnson who are in office. That's what's going on. So that's the new Speaker of the House. Sleep tight. And please do leave some super chats. I want to talk to you. Leave me some super chats. What's your take on the UAW situation? What's your take on the new Speaker of the House? How enthusiastic are you on a scale of 1 to 11? And let's go to our last story of the day. Peter Daou has left Cornel West's campaign. Let's go to Cornel West's tweet first. I am very sorry about the resignation of brother Peter Daou based on his health. I sincerely pray for him and his precious family and thank him for his service to my campaign. Now, for those of you who don't already know this, and I know a lot of you already do, but Peter Daou is a guy with a bit of controversy around him because of his history, and I would argue because of his presence too. And we're going to get into this. So Peter Daou is a political strategist, I guess, and he's worked as campaign manager in a couple different contexts. He's also had other positions on various campaigns over the years. And he was a big DNC Democratic operative for a long time. And then after 2016, he allegedly had a change of heart and became a big lefty. And Cornel West brought him on to manage his campaign. And some people were a little skeptical of that choice and a little concerned about that choice. I was one of them. I was concerned about that choice. Now, why was I concerned about that choice? Now, everybody who expressed concern about that choice in the online, left space or whatever, everybody said, oh, it's because you haven't forgiven him for 2016. That's why you're skeptical of him. That was not my reason. Now, do I think Peter Daou's change is sincere? I have no clue. I have no reason to not believe it is. I have no reason to believe it is either. I don't know if he sincerely changed or not. No clue. But here's the thing, though. Peter Daou in 2020 worked for, several progressive grassroots candidates. None of them won, which that's one thing. I mean, these were progressive candidates going up against the Democratic machine. So it was a long shot, but Peter Daou worked for some of them. None of them were victorious. And some of them are people who I know personally. And they spoke to me off record about their experience with him, and has nothing to do with personality or Twitter history. Just to put it bluntly, the guy wasn't good at his job. He wasn't a good campaign manager. He was really not great at it. And it did not help their campaign. Because guess what? It's not like the guy worked for free. He's getting paid. So when Cornel West brought Peter Daou on, my response was, I'm concerned about this, not because of 2016 Peter Daou, but because I don't think he's a very good campaign manager. And I don't know how good he's going to do with this thing. And also, Peter Daou worked for the Marianne Williamson campaign, and he left that campaign after a short period of time too. Now, look, I don't want to over speculate on Peter Daou's health. That's not my business. I don't know what his situation is. He may very well have some significant health issues, and I would never want to make light of it. However, one can't help but notice that he was with the Marianne Williamson campaign for a short period of time, left the campaign in a worse spot than where he found it, and he left because of issues going on in his family. For family reasons, he cited his parents' health. Okay, now he left Cornel West, same situation, a short period of time. The campaign's worse than how he found it. And now he has a health issue. One can't help but find that all a bit peculiar. And also, he left Marianne Williamson around the time Peter Daou left the Marianne Williamson campaign. Marianne Williamson had a few sound bites that were not super flattering for her. She had a few sound bites that didn't make her look all that great. Then all of a sudden, Peter Daou had to leave the campaign. Cornel West made the decision to leave the Greens, which I think was the wrong decision. And it doesn't seem to be going that great for him, that decision. Now, all of a sudden, Peter Daou has to leave. So, I mean, you can't help but just sort of be like, what's the situation here? And look, I don't know if Peter Daou's change is sincere or not. I have no idea. I'm not inside the man's head. I don't know what Peter Daou's health issues are or aren't, and I certainly wish him nothing but the very best in that regard. But one thing I feel like we can all say definitively, and this is just some real talk here, the guy's not a good campaign manager. I think it is objectively fair to say Peter Daou is not very good as a campaign manager, yet people keep bringing this guy in on a large scale. And this is why I have a lot of the frustrations I do towards electoral politics in general, because you see these massive, unserious decisions being made time and time again. And you see these campaigns that are basically just vanity projects time and time again. I mean, you saw the 2020 clown car where it was just about branding for over half those people. Or to screw over Bernie. That was the other big agenda. Screw over Bernie or do some personal branding. That was 2020. Now 2024, there's pretty much a non-existent frickin' primary. And Peter Daou was with Marianne Williamson. Campaign's worse than how he found it. With Cornel West, campaign's worse than how he's found it. He's out in both situations. I mean, how do you kind of add that up? I mean, so I don't know. I don't know what's going to be next for the Cornel West campaign. I don't know what's going to be next. And again, I don't want to over speculate about Peter Daou's departure, but you just can't help notice that it's like, I mean, that campaign has definitely had some missteps. I wish he would reconsider and go back to the Greens. I don't think he's going to. But to me, the choice to leave the Greens did not make any sense to me. And I don't know what kind of influence Peter Daou had on that decision one way or another. I don't know. I don't know if Peter Daou was for that decision or not for it. You know, I mean, you look at this guy's history, and again, like this is nothing personal, but you know, he started with John Edwards. He started with John Edwards, or wait, no, John Kerry, excuse me. So he was John Kerry, 2004. He helped out on that campaign. John Kerry was the guy who managed to lose to George W. Bush. And just for the record, John Kerry was the only guy who lost to George W. Bush. Because keep in mind, he didn't lose in 2000. Al Gore did not lose in 2000. So John Kerry, only guy who managed to lose to George W. Bush. 2008, Peter Daou worked with John Edwards, the guy who had a lot of name recognition because of 2004, and yet in the 2008 primary did nothing. 2016, Peter Daou did some work for Hillary Clinton. We don't need to embellish any more there. 2020, Peter Daou helps out some grassroots candidates. None of them are victorious. And some conversations I've had off record, and again, I can't go into detail here. I would be violating the trust of people I know. But they did not have a great experience working with him. And then 2024, Peter Daou's with Marianne Williamson for a little bit, leaves after a short amount of time. With Cornel West for a little bit, leaves after a short amount of time. You know, again, and maybe there is an explanation there. I get it. You know, and I'm not trying to over speculate there or make light of anything. And I, of course, hope that he is okay. But I mean, it's safe to say this guy probably shouldn't be working as a campaign manager. It's probably not a great idea to have this dude be a campaign manager. He's apparently a great jazz musician. Oh, that's great. That doesn't mean you're going to be a good campaign manager. It's like my buddy Cory Doctorow says. I don't know if Cory said it first, but the first person I heard it from was Cory. But, you know, specialization is for insects. I do believe that to be true. But you know what? Sometimes, you know, being a great jazz musician doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great campaign manager. So I wish Cornel West would reconsider and go back to the Greens, but I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I really don't. You know, there's definitely been a lot of missteps in that campaign, and I don't know where it's going to go next. But we'll see. I mean, I like Cornel West a lot. I think he's a wonderful human, a great activist, a great thinker. If the election were held tomorrow, I would, of course, vote for Cornel West. There wouldn't be a doubt in my mind. Whatever's next to Cornel West's name, I would vote for him. But, you know. All right, let's go to the super chats. Justin, what's up? How are you? Here's a super chat for you, and thanks for your coverage on these topics, Ron. Green Party organizer from Maine here. It's possible for Cornel to come back to the Green Party. I hope he makes that choice for the people. I hope he does too. I don't understand his choice to leave. You know, the only explanation I heard from him was when he said, well, I had to spend so much time talking to the Greens that I felt like I wasn't spending enough time talking to everybody. It's like, yeah, but Dr. West, like the Greens have an infrastructure. So why wouldn't you start with that infrastructure, secure the nomination? I mean, look, Greens are still going to have a primary, but let's be honest. I think it'd be tough for anyone to beat Cornel West. He would likely win. So why not just start there, build upon that base along with your own? So you have their infrastructure, their base, their registered voters, their ballot placements, which, yes, I know that they're not on the ballot everywhere, but they're definitely a lot more than zero as an independent starting off. You know, when I interviewed Margaret Kimberly on my show, she made this point. She goes, look, the only person that really made a dent on the ballot as an independent was Ross Perot, and that guy was a billionaire. So, and of course, I have really no enthusiasm about the 2024 election, but the one thing I was really hoping for was that Cornel West might finally get the Greens to 5%. So I'm with you, Justin. I do hope he comes back. Jeremy, what's up? Jeremy, how are you? After working with Peter recently, I have faith in his sincerity of being more left now. I had serious doubts and concerns, but after working closely with him, I'm confident in his move to the left. And you may very well be right, Jeremy. I mean, that's cool that you worked with the guy. I don't have any, again, my critiques aren't of a personal nature. I have no reason to not believe he is sincere. I don't have any reason to believe he is either, but I have no reason to believe he's not. So I'll give someone the benefit of the doubt. Why not? Again, my criticism is I don't think the guy's a good campaign manager. And I think there's enough receipts saying that this guy, and I mean, again, I'm not trying to sound insensitive. I don't know what the man's situation is, and I, of course, wish him and all his family the very best. But if he does have these significant things going on in his life that force him to resign from positions like this, well, then you shouldn't be accepting them in the first place. If you're having some significant issues in your life, whether with your parents or with your own health, to the point where you had to step down as a campaign manager on one campaign, you probably shouldn't be accepting another campaign manager position on another campaign. I mean, I'm not trying to sound insensitive here, but, you got to make that judgment call. Because when you take a position like that, which is a very important position, and then you just bail, you're kind of screwing over the campaign. But yeah, I mean, his shift to the left may very well be sincere. I don't doubt you. But Kevin, what's up? Not sure I totally understand your comment here. Ron, don't forget you reported Dr. West got up to 9%. Okay. Is that a good thing, or was that number wrong, or what do you mean? I hope he gets, I hope he gets more than that. I mean, I like Cornel West. I want to see him do well. I don't think I fully understand your comment. Was I wrong about that number? Was I right about it? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Please clarify. But thank you for your thoughts, Kevin. I appreciate it very much. Presence, what's up? Reed Cornel West. Big difference between being a professor, activist, author versus being an executive manager leader. Absolutely. One small disagreement I would have with you, Presence, is I would not include leader in that. I don't think just because, and I don't know if this is how you intended it, but I think that someone can be a leader in different capacities. You don't need to be a politician to be a leader. In fact, I would argue most politicians aren't leaders. They're followers. That's why they have their job. So I would say that as a professor, activist, and author, Cornel West is a leader. He's just a leader in a different area. So I'm not trying to be like nitpicky over your word choices or whatever, but I would say he is a leader. He's just a leader in that capacity. You don't have to be a leader just in the political realm. That's all I'm saying. Let's see here. Oh, you guys are following up. I like that. That's always fun. Justin, you're back. I have some knowledge of what led Cornel to his decisions. Some people that were working on the campaign were pushing him in that direction. Peter, at the least, didn't help the situation. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Well, here's another thing that I have been told from sources that I'm close to. At one point in time, Peter Daou approached the Green Party about basically wanting to work for them. And Justin, maybe you can speak to this. But according to some sources I'm close with, at one point, Peter Daou approached the Green Party about basically being a staffer for them. He was going to try to help grow the party. And he asked for, just a stipend to live on, which is fair. You need to survive. The Green Party took a vote on it. It was a very close vote, but they decided no. They turned down his offer, which I think they made the right decision. I think if I were casting a vote in that situation, I would vote no. And again, it's not personal. Peter Daou and I might sit down and talk about music and have a wonderful time. Again, I just don't think he's good at his job or the jobs he's going for. So yeah, I mean, I can't say like where he stood on Cornel West's decision to leave the Green Party, but you're saying that at the least he wasn't helpful in that situation. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean that thought crossed my mind when all that went down, but I don't have any evidence of one thing, one way or the other. Jeremy, you are also back. What's up, Jeremy? Your concerns are definitely valid, Ron, and I didn't mean to make it sound as though they weren't. Sorry if it came off that way. Oh, it didn't come off that way at all. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no apology necessary. I didn't take it that way at all. I just, I was just making it clear what my concerns were, and that, my concerns are nothing to do with his political evolution. I mean, Jeremy, I hope you're right. I mean, I hope that it was a sincere evolution. I have no reason to believe it's not. So hopefully it is. Sorry, I'm getting a little parched, but yeah, thank you for your thoughts there. I appreciate it very much. Let's see here. Teach, what's up, Teach? Teach says, I think if RFK and Cornel West team up, they might actually have a chance to shake up the next election. Teach, I agree with you. They might actually have a chance to shake up the next election. However, I will be leaving that ballot blank. If RFK's in it, I'm not voting for RFK. I don't care who he's with. RFK is not getting a vote from me. So if he's running with Cornel West, I would not be able to vote for Cornel West. I'm certainly not voting for Biden. I'm certainly not voting for Trump or DeSantis or whoever else. So I will leave President blank, or I'll write somebody in, or I guess probably what I'll actually do is vote for the socialists or whoever the Green ends up being. I guess I probably wouldn't leave it blank. But yeah, if RFK and Cornel West are together on a ticket, that's a no from me. Not and honestly, if Cornel West would run with somebody like RFK, that would really make me. I would be a little questioning of his judgment there. But I agree with you. It would shake shit up. It would shake shit up. I'll agree with you there. And I do think such a ticket would get 5% of the vote. But yeah. All right. So let's see here. Presents. Leaders get things done. What has West gotten done? He's been a public intellectual for years and years and years, inspired countless students and thinkers. He's been present at movements going back to the 80s. He's been outspoken on issues at times where people were not speaking out about them. He was speaking about racial justice at a time where you really weren't able to cross lines that he crossed on national platforms. Does that answer your question? He's running for chief executive of the country and he can't even run a campaign. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that the campaign's not going great. It's not. If you're going to say Cornel West isn't a leader, I completely disagree. I just rattled off a bunch of reasons why. So, I mean, if you want to, whatever, Cornel West isn't a leader. I mean, who would you rather see, Presence? Who would you want to see as opposed to Cornel West? So out of curiosity. But yeah, if you think Cornel West isn't a leader, I disagree with you. I think leaders come in different forms, and I would actually argue most politicians aren't leaders. So, if you're going to say like running a good presidential campaign is the indication of a leader, Barack Obama ran a great presidential campaign, strictly speaking, from a campaign. I don't consider Barack Obama a leader. Who else? Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. Yeah, I'm with you. I'd vote for Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders ran again, I'd vote for him, but he's not He's not going to. I'd love it if he did, but he's not going to. And if he did, they would just. I think at this point he sees the writing on the wall. They're just gonna constantly. They're just gonna constantly kneecap him. I think Ray asked a great question. Will this election happen? Will this election even happen? That's a great. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna happen. They'll make it happen. It might be the lowest. It might be pretty low turnout. I mean, I don't know. But it'll definitely happen. But yeah, it'll happen. Let's see. Some people are saying Sean Fain. I don't think Sean Fain would run for president. But yeah, if Bernie ran again, they would just screw him over. They would just screw him over. But yeah. So let me go through everything again. Let's see. Thank you, Justin B. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeremy. Good to see you. Thank you so much, Kevin. Good to see you. Presence, thank you so much for your thoughts. I appreciate it. Justin, thank you so much. Jeremy, again, thank you. Teach, hope all's well. I hope all is going well in Chicago, buddy. It was cool hanging out with you. And Presence, again, thank you guys so much for your Super Chat contributions. You help keep this show on the air. Guys, if you are able, please do become a member. It helps keep Status Quo on the air, and it helps us go on the ground bringing you journalism. StatusCoup.com/join. We were just validated by our coverage in East Palestine recently, and the coverage of Status Lou, who was on the beat a lot there in East Palestine. Shout out to a friend of the show, Savage Joy. She caught an EPA person on a hot mic where they basically admitted they had no idea how safe it was when they told people they were safe and to go home. You can watch that video. So, membership, as Chris just put, membership makes this reporting sustainable. We could not do what we do without your membership because journalism takes resources. It takes planning. It takes travel. It takes logistics. It takes hotels and food and equipment. So please, statuscoup.com/join. And we got a lot of exciting stuff for you, too. You're going to get to see my short film that's not out to the public yet. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that you get along with your membership. And guys, I'll also mention a shameless plug for my own podcast. I have a new podcast series called 1000 with Ron Placone. The premise of it is I interview 1,000 different people who have attracted my interest in some way. Maybe I love their work, their music, their films, their comedy. Maybe they're a journalist, an academic. Maybe I disagree with them. Interest is a broad concept, but that's the concept of the podcast. It's going to take me about 20 years to do because I'm going to drop an interview a week, and it's going to be 1,000 different people. But the interview should be pretty interesting because it's a one and done deal. Once I have a guest, I will never have them back on the series again. Some of my guests so far include Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys, Cory Doctorow, Margaret Kimberly, and Celeste Lacine, the LGBTQ activist. So check it out. It's 1000 with Ron Placone, wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you can see the clips over on my YouTube channel, which please make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/Ron Placone. You get the drill. Guys, and last but certainly not least, how did the poll end, Colin?
We ended with 320 votes. Should the UAW accept the new contract? 23% said no. 28% said yes. 48% said wait to see more details.
So wait, what was the yes? What was the no?
And no was 23%.
So it was 23 no. Then yes was 32. You said
28.
28. Okay, so it was yes by a little bit, but the biggest majority was let's see all the details first.
Yeah, by almost 50%.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's totally the best way to play it at this point because we're gonna get more information here come Sunday. And guys, we will keep following this story. As soon as we know more, you will know more as well. Thanks so much for being here today. Thank you again for all your super chats. Again, I'll give another round of thank yous. Justin, Jeremy, Kevin, Presence, Justin again, Jeremy again, Teach, Presence. thank you guys so much for the conversation. I appreciate it very, very much. It was awesome to chat with all of you. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup signing out.